Hi, I'm Margot Cheel, the chapter chair of the 99s in Eastern New England. Today we are in Jackson, New Hampshire, where we just completed a spring section meeting. And we're speaking with Evelyn Kropp, who's been a 99 since 1968. Evelyn has served on all kinds of boards and capacities with the 99s and also has flown in a number of air races and events. And today, at the age of 83, she is still flying her own plane.
Eagle Mountain House in Jackson, New Hampshire. We have just finished our section meeting today, and we're beautiful day, and we are all happy to be together with our family. That's I call the 99s my family. Joined the 99s in 1968 after I got my private pilot's license in 67. And I held a lot of offices. I was all chapter office chairman the last, and then I became involved with the section, and I was treasurer, vice governor, governor in 1980 to 82, and I was governor when we had the convention, the international convention in Boston. And it was one thing I want to mention. It was kind of sad. I was installed governor the day my husband got married, and I'm still thinking of it. What I did, I got a lot of ratings, one after the other. I got my private, of course, first. Then I got the commercial in 68, 69, my instrument rating first, then the commercial, and then multi-engine. And then early 70, I got my all-ground instructor ratings, the flight instructor, airplanes, and instruments. And then later I got a scholarship for the multi-engine instructor from the AE scholarship. Then I flew the Powder Puff Derby in 1973. That was from Carlsbad, California to Elmira, New York. I flew that solo. And by the way, I won leg prizes in my first race already. But then I flew the Powder Puff Derby. I flew the Angel Derby several times. And I flew all the smaller races like the Mission. And then I got my ATP in 78, single and multi, and also my commercial seaplane rating. And I got that at Moosehead Lake in Maine from 99. My real love is really air racing. I started my first air race 1972, and I flew solo in the Angel Derby, the all-women's international air race that went from Ottawa to Fort Lauderdale. And one of the members gave every racer a jacket, a blue jacket, and this is it. And since then, I've been, it's really my prized possession. Well, you have to see the back too, because it is history. These are races I flew, and it's all 99 stuff. And I don't even want to take it to the cleaners anymore. And, I'm afraid something's going to happen to it. So that is, this is my prized possession. With the old anti-airlines, that's a very exclusive club, just a few of us, and we had our stationery printed, and that was on an Angel Derby, we did that. We were 3 airplanes, 2 Arrows and 172, 5 people because I was solo. And we did that in the mountains in Mexico. We caught up with each other on the way out to an air race. We stayed in the mountains, and we had really a good time there. It was scary there. We were with soldiers and around the airplane. It was just kind of scary, but we were in such a happy mood. We founded this club, 5 of us. The Stalled Angels, we formed this in Florida, and it was Stalled Angels. It was the Angel Derby. We kind of dropped out half of the crew because of weather, and we didn't know whether we should call ourselves the Fallen Angels, or then we decided to call it the Stalled Angels. In 1972, I flew my first Angel Derby, the international all-women's air race from Ottawa, Canada to Fort Lauderdale. And I flew that solo. I was really scared to do it, and I didn't want to push the throttle forward. But then, the other racers, they said, you just push that throttle in and it goes. And so I did it, and it worked. And I won a leg prize on that race. I didn't know how much fuel I was going to use on that race, and because I hadn't flown the airplane full throttle at all. And I was surprised that I used like 50% more fuel than for normal flying. But anyway, I won a leg prize. The next year, I flew the Powder Puff Derby. That was my first Powder Puff Derby solo from Carlsbad, California to Elmira, New York. I flew that solo. I won a leg prize too, and it was, I had an experience of I never had seen the Rocky Mountains before, and I was scared stiff. I did have oxygen aboard, but my airplane was loaded. I was also a member of the Connecticut Medical Society of the auxiliary there, and they heard of the 99s transporting stuff, and so they asked me if I could do that. They had a mission for me, and if I could get the 99s involved. And they had collected diapers, Pampers for the Indians in New Mexico. And so we were, if I could help with the transportation, so I recruited, Peg Davidson flew a load, she flew that Powder Puff Derby too, and my airplane was loaded. And I organized a lot of these things, and my airplane was so full of diapers that I had no room to connect my oxygen. I had that on the right seat, but I was so full of diapers I just couldn't. So, and then I went through into Albuquerque, and I got in, I was told to come report over the fairgrounds. Well, I've never been in Albuquerque, but do I know where the fairgrounds are? So I said, well, give me vectors, and I couldn't find the airport, and it's a big long runway, and I couldn't see it. And I was just, I had to get vectors on final. I said, they wanted me on another runway, not on the big one. And then I said, well, I don't see it. And so they had to give me vectors to final. I landed, and then all of a sudden the tower screamed, 66 Romeo, which is my airplane, which I had since 1969. And 66 Romeo, stop. And I just stopped, and I almost had a collision with an airliner who took off on that long runway. I had a lack of oxygen. I did not know. I mean, I had a severe headache after that. I was scared, and I had flown at high altitude for quite a while. And this is the first time, so density, altitude, pay attention to that. And then the next day I put on my oxygen and it was okay. So.
Yeah, you could remember that forever.
You don't, yeah, and I think that's an important thing in my life.
Yeah.
It was.
Did you hear them say hold
No,
shut?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I wasn't functioning anymore.
Because of the lack of oxygen.
Was hypoxic.
Yeah.
And that was the 4th of July the next.
What altitude had you been at?
It's 10, 12 and a half.
Uh-huh.
I was scared of the mountains. I didn't know what to expect. And then I came through that pass, and I had to dive down. And, then the fairgrounds, God knows what's the fairgrounds, is in New Mexico. I've never been there, and I was tired, anxious. And I flew quite a few other air races after that, and through Mexico I flew solo all the way to Acapulco on an air race, and then I flew the Great Southern Air Race, the Michigan Small Race, the Illinois Air Derby, the Garden State 300, and the New England Air Race, and I placed quite a few times. But I got second place several times, and third and fourth, but never first. And I just couldn't get first place in anything, and that really bugs me, but I've given it up now. And I flew also the Airways Classic, I forgot that. So that is, and racing is really, it's in my blood, and I haven't done it for a few years. The last Airways Classic I flew, I lost on the way out. I lost my gear motor in Minnesota. And on the way back, my engine failed. I lost my engine on the way home. So, and that cost me like $40,000. And that was a big chunk of money. And I haven't, I just read, I haven't. Yeah, and this is one of the trophies. I have a bunch of them at home. And it's one of them that I got in those races. And I got medals and all kinds of stuff. And the most important thing in the races is my friends. The racers I met, they are just lifelong friends. I mean, they're competition, but they are my best friends. And as I said earlier, I was governor of the New England section, and it was in 1981 when we had the international conference in Boston, and I was really, really busy. We developed at that time the educational programs, which was kind of fairly new. Charlene Falkenberg was involved with this, and it was a good thing, and it was just a very busy time. Good thing after my husband died, and I was busy with that. It was very interesting to meet all these speakers at the convention, and we had one was Cliff Robertson, and he sat at the head table with me and he kissed me, and I flushed, and it was funny, but it was exciting. I had all my ratings, as I mentioned before, but I really didn't work. I had a private student here or there, but my husband didn't like me to work. But when he died, I really, I needed the money too. And then I got a job as flight instructor in Waterford, Connecticut, and I think I did very well because someone told me I brought the flight school really up to par again. And then I also became assistant chief flight instructor at cross country aviation in Hartford, and I really enjoyed the students, but I also flew charters, and then I flew, I wanted to get a corporate job. You know, the flying, it paid me $7 an hour. It was really awful, and it was really, it was rough work, you know, all kinds of weather. It was really tough flying the little airplanes with the people who were demanding, and it was a rough job. But anyway, I went to Westchester County Airport knocked on the doors for a corporate job, and I kind of got laughed off. And I had an ATP, but I really, you know, when they heard I was married to a physician, then they said, "What do you want to work for? You've got it made." And this is, you know, really, and it hurt me. And then I knew someone from Westchester, and he gave me a chance. And so when he needed a co-pilot in a citation, he called me. That was for ABC TV, okay, for capital cities. And so I flew, and I made it. That was good money those days. How I got into flying is my husband had a heart attack, and he flew gliders in Germany before, and he wanted to get into flying here, and then he had a massive heart attack, but thank God he survived that time, and he said, "Now you are going to learn to fly, and then we can fly together." And I said, "You're nuts." But he really pushed me into my first introductory ride, and I got hooked the first flight, and that's how I started flying. And later on, if I was en route with my Arrow with 66 Romeo, he kept his word. He bought me a brand new airplane, and I still have it today. It's 45 years old, and but he. You know, he flew with me, and he could never complain that I went on my air races. I was gone 3 or 4 weeks at a time. In 1976, I flew the last powder puff derby, and there were 200 airplanes. That was from Sacramento, California to Wilmington, Delaware. And Gene Batchelor was my co-pilot, and we came in 11th place. Split hundreds of seconds. We missed 10th place with the trophies. We were really not happy, but we were still happy. So out of 2 airplanes, we came in 11th place, and that made us feel good. On the last Powder Puff Derby, the last leg from Parkersburg, West Virginia, and to Wilmington, Delaware, yeah, we were just behind a cold front, and it was bumpy. It was bumpy, and we were flying over those hills. And I told Jean we couldn't really navigate anymore. We just counted the elevation, the ridges. We counted the ridges, and I told Jean, keep your head there so we don't bump each other's head and get knocked out. Well, anyway, everything flew around, and then there was a thunderstorm over Wilmington while we were on our way there, but thank God we prayed. It just moved out by the time we got there. Anyway, we came out of the cockpit and we were kind of dressed up. We didn't fly in those high heels, but we had them to get out. And then the reporters were all outside, and I couldn't find one of my shoes. They had flown through the cockpit, and we looked and they said, come out, the reporters are here. I said, I can't come out without shoes. So this really funny. And when we finally found my shoe, we came out of the airplane, and there we were with our big hats and the outfits matching the colors of the airplane in orange. Here we are at the awards banquet of the 1980 Airways Classic in Columbia. No, yeah, in South Carolina. Columbia, I think it was Columbia, and the awards banquet, and that's the way we dressed those days. And I got a leg prize from that, but I flew that race solo, as I mentioned before. That was from Corpus Christi to Columbia, South Carolina. No, wait a minute. Yeah, 74.
Okay.
In 1974, I flew the Angel Derby, the all-international air race, which started in Acapulco, and we flew all through the mountains. My co-pilot, Jerry Gardner, met me in Acapulco, so I had to get there by myself. And it's at one of the airports, you really feel density altitude in those mountains. And I did not, you cannot teach anyone with books. I was solo, and I had full fuel and my luggage, that was all. So I was really not at gross weight. And I was in one of the mountains, I forgot which airport, I think it was Querétaro. I forgot the name of the airport in Mexico. And I wasn't feeling that well that day. We had a party the night before somewhere, and so, but anyway, I took off, and the airplane just wouldn't climb, it wouldn't get off the runway. And I saw the end of the runway coming up, and that still wouldn't lift. And then the terrain was rising right after the runway. And well, I had to keep the nose down, but I just made it off the runway, and there was a factory. I remember those stacks there, and I saw the people there and in the yard. And I just missed all this, and I had to, finally the airplane started to climb, but I had to turn around it. I had to do a downward departure to get en route where I was going. I think at 3 or 4 valleys, I had to climb mountain ranges. I had to go back later because I could not turn that airplane. I had to keep flying straight before I make a turn, because before I had enough speed to do this. Mm-hmm. And that was scary. And I was at cemetery at the end. After the factory, there was a cemetery too. And but that was a lesson on density altitude.